Do you ever feel like life can sometimes be like this uphill battle, and it seems like there's a bit of a struggle with trying to achieve our goals?
On today's show, we're going to be talking about letting go of resistance. Stay tuned. It's Awaken Your Spirit.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Awakening Your Spirit. We are your hosts. I'm Dr. Aaron Garcia.
And I'm Veronica Mendez Garcia. And our show is about inspiration, motivation, and developing the mindset to live a happy and abundant life.
We are live here every Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time. If you guys would like to join us here on the show, whether you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, make sure you guys turn on the live notification button here in the feed. On YouTube, click that subscribe button and that little bell icon so you always know when we go live and post a new video on our channel. Today, we're going to talk about non-resistance and letting go of that resistance in our life. But before we get into that, we always like to start off with our first segment of our show, which is our inspirational moment with Veronica.
So inspirational moments is when I like to read something inspirational. And today I have a card that I picked from my Archangel Michael deck here. It's all the beautiful colors and everything. And the card that I picked today, it says, "Go forward fearlessly." And here's that picture. All right. And this card says, this card is a sign that you're on the right path and that it's safe for you to move forward with your plans. As long as you hold intentions that are focused on your heart's desire, your steps will be automatically poised in the right direction. Right now, it's important for you to take action, no matter how small or seemingly inconsequential, toward your desired outcome. Ask Archangel Michael for guidance by saying, "Please show me the next step," and he'll come to your aid. And all the while, he'll also be protecting and supporting you through these significant life changes. And the possible meaning to this card is you're supported as you make a life change. Leave an unhealthy situation. It's a good time to start a new business or other venture. Enter this relationship with an open heart and mind. This is the right choice for you. And then the prayer that goes with it, it says, "Thank you for walking with me every step of the way, for holding my hand, giving me confidence and courage, and guiding my thoughts and actions in the direction of love and my true life's purpose."
Ooh, if you guys enjoy that, make sure you give us some high fives.
Some high fives.
Some high fives. High fives here into the feed. Let us know here. Yes, I love it here into the comments section. And it's always fascinating because we'll pull these cards, and the message that it shares, I believe, is universal for everybody. And if that resonates with you in some way, type yes here into the comments. Love to hear your feedback on that. But I think anything in life, when we're going for something, we're striving for something greater, that the card shows that go forward fearlessly. Meaning we have to be able to overcome our fears, because it's our fears that can stop us in our tracks. And today we're talking about resistance, and fear could be one of those resistances that we put up on ourselves that prevents us from moving forward.
And it's interesting that right now there's a lot of people going through life changes and maybe starting new ventures, new things, because things have to be done a little differently now with everything going on. And it's that's just a sign to let you know that you're going to be okay, and it's okay to move forward and move forward fearlessly.
Absolutely. So that was the inspirational moment for today for you guys. I want to say hello to those who are joining in with us. And if where are you coming from, type us here to the feed. Say hi. If you're new, type new so we can say hello to you as well. We got Gloria Capola joining with us.
Gloria.
She says love. Hello. Good morning.
Good
Craig
morning.
says good morning, Veronica and Aaron.
Good morning,
Craig. Thank you guys for being here with us today on Awakening Your Spirit. And it's fascinating because we love to share our experience and our knowledge with you guys. And there's times that we will also bring other people on to share their experience and knowledge of how we deal with this thing called life. And how do we push through our emotions? How do we push through achieving and attracting the things that we want to achieve in our life.
Yeah. And, emotions could be a difficult thing. And that's, something that could get in the way of you moving forward, because like the card said, like those fears can come up, and some of us allow that fear to stop us in our tracks. And we have that resistance to move forward because there's some kind of underlying fear. It could be fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough, whatever that may be. But that is something that can really stop a lot of people.
Absolutely. I had something going on in my eye just for a second, like that I was going to be able to see or anything. So I'll see if it pops.
Can you see now?
I can see now. I can see all of you guys, you beautiful people here onto the show. And so today we are talking about letting go of resistance. And I speak about this because I know there's been times that I put up a lot of resistance in my life. Mm-hmm. And there's certain things that we want to push forward. And I find that when there's a bit of a struggle, when it seems like things aren't working out the way I expect them to, one thing that I understood is this concept of resistance that we put up. And resistance can show up in so many different ways, of some self-sabotaging behaviors, not, really almost like thinking too hard. Mm-hmm. That could be another way, is trying to make things happen rather than allowing things to happen.
So what are some of the things that you experienced during that? Like what was the resistance that you had that was stopping you, like a fear or whatever it was?
I believe for me is, and if you guys can relate, type this into the comments, it's that fear of it not being good enough. Of it's got to be perfect, because what are people going to think about that? Or are they going to like that? It's that approval of others that a lot of us might tend to seek. Mm-hmm. And when we get caught up in the minute details of everything, that it's got to be this way, it's got to be structured the way I can see it, then what happens is we're closing off our creative faculty. Mm-hmm. We're closing off other possibilities and ideas that could be even better than the way that I can see it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's great for us to collaborate with other people, because that's the concept of a mastermind, is when there's two or more gathered, great things can come from that, because there are other people that can see things that you cannot. And so that's how a lot of great ideas in this world are brought up, because of us collaborating and coming together. But I would create that resistance. Mm-hmm. And I still find I'll create it once in a while. And I have to be aware of that to be able to correct myself and just allow myself to allow.
Yeah. And I think that, you said it perfectly, is the allowance is, we don't allow things to happen. It's like we're trying to force and push things to happen versus just allowing. And the more that we push and try to make things happen, it creates more resistance. And, some people don't really understand that concept of, well, if I'm trying, I'm trying, but it's like, what's the energy you're bringing forward when you're trying too hard? What's that energy that you're pushing up against when you're trying to make things happen and trying to force it? It creates a resistance trying to force. It's like putting, they give that example of like the little kid toys where with all the different shapes, and you're trying to put like a little square shape into the round shape, and it doesn't, it doesn't go. Mm-hmm. Because you're trying to force it, and that's more resistance. But when you just allow, things just fall into place and they go into the right places. But a lot of us tend to try to push too much. Mm. And even trying to get things across to people, it's like when they're ready to listen, then the ideas, that you share with them will sink in. But if you try to push someone with ideas and just like try to make them try to understand, you get more resistance, or try to force somebody to change. Like, you can't do that. It's like when they're ready to change, they'll either ask you for help or, things like that. And then it just flows. Yeah. It's easier.
Because you find whenever you create resistance, or you feel that there's resistance and you're trying to push, like you were saying, and you push, it seems like it's almost like the wall gets harder and harder. Like you're trying to push it and it gets heavier, it gets stronger. And it's like, why isn't it working out the way that I want it to? And because we're trying to make it happen. It's got to be this way. We're trying to, and what that does is it creates so much frustration.
Mhm.
And you'll know when the resistance is there because of how you feel. If you find yourself feeling frustrated, if you feel like giving up, or whether it's you're creating a business for yourself, or trying to earn more income, whether that's trying to create more joy, happiness in your life, whatever it is you're trying to create. If you always find yourself in this constant battle of I feel good, I feel bad, I feel good, I feel bad, then somewhere along the line there is resistance. Will we experience challenges trying to achieve for something greater in our life? Absolutely. And there's those moments where it's our growth period.
Mhm.
And in that growth period is going to let you know, are we put in a wall? Are we trying to push too hard? Is like being like that flow of water that, water always goes down the path of least resistance.
Mhm.
If it comes up across a barrier, it'll get clogged, but eventually it's going to trickle down to and just go with the flow of gravity and wherever it needs to go without any fuss or about it. It's just going to go where it needs to go. And if it gets trapped here, it's going to get trapped there, and it'll create something from that.
Mhm.
But I believe we all have to be like that. And that's what Bruce Lee even said. It's like we all need to be like water, is learn to be adaptable and mold to the conditions and situations that are around us.
Yeah, it's like that mutable, be able to change in the circumstances that you need to change in.
Mm-hmm.
But there's again the change. There's a lot of people that resist change and they don't like change, so they want to stay where they're at, and they want to continue doing the same things over and over. But like the more that you're open to changing, it's like that's when you experience more growth in your life. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's it's not just like that same pattern that you're doing over and over. It's like you're experiencing new things, you're changing, you're growing as a person because you're going to experience those challenges.
Mm-hmm. It's almost going with the flow of life.
Yeah.
No matter what's going on around us, can we be okay and still move forward and not try to put up such a battle? And again, it really depends on how you feel, and what you feel is that point of energy that you're vibrating out. You're going to attract like energy. You're going to find more resistance in your life because we're trying to push so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so this concept of letting go of the resistance is really just a sense of allowing. And the point of it is so you can feel more free and just feel more relaxed. Mm-hmm. and experience more joy and happiness and enjoy the process of life.
Yeah. And that's what life is about, is enjoying that journey and just going with it, going with the flow. And you will get the challenges, but it's like, how do you react or respond to those challenges? Like, are you going to react out of anger and frustration, or are you going to respond like in a more calm way where you can think more rationally and use your emotions and feelings to go with it and make a better decision for yourself?
Absolutely. Let's say hello to a few people that are watching with us right now. Dan McCleskey says, aloha and peace.
Aloha, Dan.
Welcome, Dan.
Thank you for joining us.
He also says, allow creativity, allow cloud of unknowing, allow good enough creative process, allow spirit to do the work. Mm-hmm. Allow the inner critic or ego to be sad because it is learning. It is not in control. One day at a time, allow myself or my ego to die daily. Old Dan is dead and needs to continue to die. For new Dan. And I think this might be the continuation. Spirit has greater things for me, much greater than ego ever could imagine. Critical parent doesn't have that flow, that creative ability. It can't, just because it controls too much.
Yeah. So it's like how do you feel when like Dan, you experienced this growing up, was like that controlling, and it doesn't feel good when other people try to control. So also for us, like we have to be mindful, like, are we trying to control situations or people or things to be a certain way? But the more we can let go of that and just go with with the flow of things, it's just so much easier, and there's no resistance, and you're going with it. Like the changes that we've all had to adapt to in today's world now, it's like, why fight? Even like the mask thing, I know it could be ridiculous for some people, but it's like, is it really that bad that you have to go into the store and put on a mask. Like, just
Mhm.
like, why fight it and create misery for yourself? Just put it on, go to get your groceries, take it off when you get out. It's not a real big deal. But if you make it a big deal, now you're finding yourself frustrated, angry, all those other emotions. And, and you're, getting yourself worked up over, something so small.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter.
And that destroys your own peace and your happiness. Is there's a lot of changes that are happening right now. And it's not going to be the same as it used to be. And so you at the beginning of this whole COVID situation, you saw a lot of tension, hostility. It was a whole change for everybody so fast that we all had to get used to it. And it's almost 3 months. We're going to, I believe, 4 months now into this whole situation. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it seems like it's been a long time. It's gone really fast. But things are starting to slowly come back. Businesses are starting to open. We finally went to a restaurant for the first time last night as a family. It wasn't the same, but hey, well, at least we still got the chance to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that's the concept, is can we still enjoy ourselves no matter what's going on around us, rather than and complaining like, it's not the same, we can't do this, we can't do that. And all we would see around us is the things that we don't like. And when we're focused on the things that we don't like, we're not paying attention to what we do want. We're not paying attention to solutions and how can we make things better for ourselves and for other people around us.
And you're not paying attention to all the goodness and all the great stuff that's out there, because there's so much, good things that are happening. But it's all what you're focused on, and you'll see more of it, if you're feeding energy to it. So that's why it's important to, just focus on what you want to see, and you'll see more of it.
Absolutely. Let's say hello to a few people. We got Stephen Smith is joining us from Sarasota, Florida. He says, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Stephen.
Thank you for joining us.
Dan says, thank you. Yes, letting go of people controlling me and me if I'm trying to control a person or result. He says, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, and that's one of the keys of resistance, is when we find that we're trying to control. I tried to control situations before. That doesn't work very well. Because we don't really have that full control. I find when I let go of having to need it to be a certain way or go a certain way, it's so much more freeing. And I find that things work out even better than I could have imagined in my own mind. But it's in that resistance that we create, chaos within our own psyche.
Yeah.
And you've watched me go through this and done it in the past. And it was interesting because I went through this bit of an experience just a few weeks ago, and I found just caught up in this a wave of an emotion, and it was more of trying to understand what's meant for me. What am I trying to create? I feel deep within me that there's something even greater that I'm going to be doing, but it's at such a higher frequency than I am today. It's like I can almost envision it, but it's going to take some time, and it's going to take a lot of growth and learning process for me to get to that point.
And it brought up emotion for you.
And it brings up emotion. It's that concept of why not now? Like, how can I do this now?
That's the patience.
And that's the patience, right? That's resistance that we put up. And it was interesting because I sat in meditation, and I think I was just so frustrated that I called to my higher self, that spirit that's within me, that greater power, however you guys want to call it. I refer to as God, the universal intelligence. And I was just like, fine, you win. I
surrender.
I surrender. I let go of this resistance because doing it my way is not working. So I will allow you to, whatever shows up for me is supposed to show up at the right time, at the right moment. And the moment I said that, all the emotion, would come out, and that sense of peace came upon me, where I didn't feel like I had to try so hard. I feel like I didn't have to push anymore trying to make things happen, because there was that greater sense within me that knew everything's going to work out exactly the way it's supposed to happen, and it's going to turn out perfectly. And it may not happen today, but eventually it's going to happen, and nothing bad's going to happen. And I think that's why we might feel we need to have control over situations, because if we don't, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to me? Everybody has their own perception of what happens if we don't have control over a situation, and that can create a sense of panic or fear. If this doesn't happen, then the world's going to go to chaos, or I'm going to lose my house, I'm going to be on the street. And, the different scenarios will come up, but there's always a reason why we need to feel like we have to have control of situations. And that concept of letting go of resistance, we've talked about letting go of surrender before, or not letting go of surrender, but surrendering to that greater power, that's where the true power comes from, is that trust.
Yeah. And, when you have all these expectations of either of yourself, of other people, of situations, that's really a control thing, because you're expecting things to go your way. But then when they don't, it's like, how do you react? How do you respond to that? Like, are you getting frustrated because, say, you didn't meet a deadline, or you had a goal of, it was supposed to happen on this day, by this time, and it didn't? Are you beating yourself up? Are you, maybe pushing that responsibility on other people as to why it didn't work out? Or are you like blaming other people? Or are you taking responsibility for yourself? Now, it's that's why it's important to, let go of some of those expectations, because depending on how you react or respond to it, like if you're someone that's like, getting frustrated over it, then maybe it's not a good idea to set like an exact day and time on when you want it to happen, because it's really on Spirit's time, not your time. And that's something that we have to understand. Like, you don't have control of what happens. Like, anything can change from one day to another. Just like with this whole virus thing, everything changed for everyone. So it's anything can happen. And it's like, okay, so this happened. What are we going to do now? Versus getting emotional and frustrated about it. And then you can't really think properly because you're emotional. But when you let go of the emotions and let go of, oh, it was supposed to happen this way. Okay, but it's not. So what are we going to do now?
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. I just learned to do it Veronica's way. It was interesting. I think it was last year, I got my dad a gift. It was either for Father's Day or his birthday. And it was something I'd seen at Hobby Lobby. But the phrase was funny to me, and I knew he'd appreciate it. And it says, if at first you don't succeed, do it the way your wife told you to. And it's interesting because there's been times when Veronica has given me advice, we should do it this way. And I've had resistance because in my mind, I wanted to do it a certain way. And then we end up doing it her way and it works out really well. Or someone later on will say, oh, you should try this. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. And Veronica's like, I told you to do that about a year ago.
But it's, it's just interesting how, even talking to family, like, you can tell them, a good idea, and then it's almost like you get disregarded, or I don't know, it because your family or I don't know, or maybe they want it a certain way or expect it to be a certain way. But then when it doesn't work out and someone else says the same idea, it's like, oh, that's a good idea. But it's, how can I say it? It's like you have to listen to other people, I guess, like certain people. Like, I don't know, like something with family, like they don't take you serious, or I don't know.
I don't know, but that becomes the thing, right? We all can experience that, and it's like we need to hear it from outside sources sometimes. Like, let's get a different opinion. It's like, I know you love me, we're doing this thing, but there's something about it. I don't know what it is, but we all go through that. Have you guys gone through that where it's like family will give you great advice, but it's hard for you to pay attention or listen to them? It's like, my family does it to me, I do it to them.
But it just depends. It depends, because it could be good advice in their eyes, but then maybe it doesn't resonate with us. So it just depends. It's like when you're ready to listen to it, you'll listen to it. And if it's good advice from family, because sometimes family can give not so good advice. So it can go either way, but you do what's right for you and what you feel resonates with you in the moment, because maybe you're not ready for it. And even like, for you in the past, like you've gotten advice from other coaches and things like that, which maybe you weren't ready at that time. Yeah. But now if you were to apply some of the things, maybe now is like the perfect time. So it's all timing as well.
Absolutely. Because we're all going through a learning process and things that, I remember reading the book Think and Grow Rich back when I was in
Mhm.
college. It was introduced to me from a friend. At that time, I couldn't understand a lot of the concepts. I
Yeah.
thought it was a great book, but then, okay, it's great. I put it down. For me, like, I wasn't a big reader at the time,
Mhm.
and I just put it aside until almost a decade later. I brought it up again, and I was like, oh, wow, there's some really good nuggets here in this book, because I've had different experiences.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is the timing. It's like,
Yeah.
we may not be ready for certain information. We have to go through some experiences, some trial and error. A lot of times it could be frustration until we're ready to receive
Mhm.
the message. But that's what resistance is about. It's about,
Yeah.
we put up that wall of, I'm not going to allow that information to come in, because there's something within us that's just not ready for that.
Yeah. The more we grow and the more we work on ourselves, then, certain information will come back and it's like, oh, that makes sense to me now.
Yeah.
And, if you were to try something way back when, maybe it wouldn't have worked out, or who knows. But it's okay to, not be so attached as to what happens. It's like, just go. If it works, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And
Yeah.
that's it.
If you guys are just tuning in with us right now, you're watching Awaken Your Spirit. We are your hosts. I'm Dr. Aaron Garcia.
And I'm Veronica Mendez Garcia. And today we're talking about letting go of resistance.
Let's say hello to a few people. We got some comments coming in and wanted to take the time to say hello to everybody. And so Dan says, flow state or staying in my lane is really a daily or hourly practice.
Yeah. And that's good. It's a practice for all of us, really. Like, we all have to, learn to just stay in our lane and go with the flow.
Craig says the Garcia family needs to work on this for sure.
Yeah.
This Garcia family or your Garcia family?
Our Garcia family.
We are all the Garcias here. But it's all of a practice for all of us.
Yeah.
We all need to practice on a daily basis and to make it a habit,
Mhm.
because it can be so easy to just go with the flow of things in our daily habits. And we may not realize that we're putting up this resistance that we have in our life.
Mhm.
We may not know that, there's conflict. It really comes down to us. What's going on within me? What's going on in my mind? What am I thinking? How am I feeling? And that could be a lot of it. And based
Mhm.
on our ideas and our experience, our paradigms, belief system, you name
Yeah.
it. Dan says,
I just thought, if I'm trying to control, I'm avoiding my inner artist or my work. It would be better to meditate or rest versus getting engaged too much in someone else's art and thinking I'm helping them. Haha. Only they know their inner artist way. That's
That's a typo.
It's very arrogant of little me to help them or tell them. Yeah. So it does make sense, like, when you put the artist component into it, because every artist, they do things the way, their creative side wants to come out. But if you try to change it, then that's really you, and it's not them. So I could see, you're trying to change someone else's art, but everyone has their own unique artistic ability, and that's with anything, really.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen says, try not to be attached to the outcome. High expectations of others can bring a lot of misery.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely a big
Yeah.
practice. It's one thing that at least I'm working on the most, is learning to be non-attached to the outcome of our
Outcomes.
goals, the things that we say we want, and just allow it to show up how it's supposed to show up. And that state of allowance is a practice, because that's a form of trust,
Mm-hmm.
trusting in that higher spirit that everything's going to work out exactly the way we've either imagined, or it's going to work out better than we imagined, but it's going to work out in some way.
Yeah.
And going with the flow of do it because of the love of doing something and to help and be of service to others, rather than the expectation of what's the end goal, whether it's a financial reward, recognition, whatever that might be. Is don't get so attached to the outcome, because if the outcome doesn't show up the way you want to, a lot of people can get very frustrated with that.
Mm-hmm.
And they lose sight of why they even did something in the first place. And we see there's a lot of people that will do things, they'll set up to do something in their life because of a reward.
Yeah.
And they find that they get very frustrated, or they're not happy with what they're doing because they're not seeing the reward they want. But part of that is because they're doing everything for the wrong reason. And we have to be of service and helping others. That's why we always tell people, is like, do something that you really love doing, whether you get paid for it or not. Is when you love doing that, the reward will be so much better. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's an internal reward. And when you're in that energy, all the other rewards will come along with that, but don't expect that.
Yeah.
That's a key.
Yeah.
I want to read something here. This comes from the book Working with the Law by Raymond Hollowell. It's this book right here. It's a fascinating book. And it's talking about the 11 truth principles for successful living. And one of the laws that they're talking about here is the law of non-resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a short snippet. It's a great chapter if you guys get a chance to read this. And he's talking about, friction. And resistance is a sense of friction. When we have friction, there becomes a lot of wear and tear and breakdown because of that. It says friction is opposition and resistance. If we go through life fighting, opposing, resisting, arguing, we are bound to meet with many obstacles and likely become so occupied fighting them that we lose sight of our real objective. Mm-hmm. And that's what we talk about when you find yourself coming up with resistance, is we put those barriers up, and we're always fighting and looking at everything that's going wrong. We're looking at everything that's not happening in our life. And what happens is we're not focused on the solution. We're not focusing on our problems. And what we focus on is what we attract. Mm-hmm. And we're going to see more of that.
Yeah, exactly. So Stephen, he says, I know someone who will not listen to her parents. Have a stranger or friend say the same thing, and they exclaim how good their advice is. And that, I think that's common for a lot of families and things like that. Where we see that. But it's an interesting thing, huh?
Mm-hmm. And I think that part is just allowing, especially no matter where anybody is on their journey, and you might feel like you have great advice to give to them, but like we mentioned earlier, they may not be ready to hear that message right now.
Yeah.
They might be ready for that message in a week. They might be ready for it in a couple of years. You may not know that. And it might be, a couple of years down the line, you say the exact same thing and they understand what you're talking about now. Mm-hmm. Or again, time goes by, they go through an experience, somebody else says this and they understand it from them. But regardless of who they get the message from, just be happy that they got the message.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, I guess, where it came from, whether, a family member told them or a friend or someone, just an acquaintance. The main thing, like Aaron said, is that they receive the message and they're acknowledging it and, to their own benefit.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to go through those experiences, those challenging times, those struggles, because we're not listening to the message. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to go on my life, do my thing, going to try to control it, do it my way. And what's going to happen is there's going to be some challenges. There's going to be obstacles. And eventually where you're like, wow, I understand this a little bit better. This mm-hmm. is not what I really want to create in my life. And I hear the message and it makes more sense. And trying to apply it is different. Things I've even read and understand, if I go back and read them again today, that's why it's always good to repeat things. And if you've read a book and there's books you love reading, go back and read them again, because you'll find that there's something that you missed before, or you'll get more clarity on what that message was because of where you're at today and mm-hmm. your experience.
Yeah. So there's a few more comments here.
We'll go here. Dan says, presentation or how I interact with other self-realized soul is so important. Coming with an approach of this is sacred ground or holy ground. This being which I cannot see is highly artistic and genius in there.
Yeah. And the things that we cannot see, have so much power, and it's some people don't understand that concept of what it is, but it's like we can get these downloads of information from the unseen. And a lot of people do, they have like a council of beings that they tune into where they can get information from as well.
Absolutely. So we're talking about letting go of resistance. Now, one of the questions that people are going to ask, how, mm-hmm. right? How do we do this? And what's interesting is sometimes in that question, how, that is the resistance, because we're always trying to figure out how are we going to do something mm-hmm. rather than allowing it to show up when it's supposed to show up and how it's supposed to show up. If we get bogged down by how to do something, then we create a lot of overwhelm mm-hmm. and we're trying to figure it out in solutions and we get flustered or frustrated. And in that how, we are closing off the creativity. We're closing off that greater power that's within us to come up with the how. And sometimes that how will show up to you. It's like, don't worry about the how, don't focus on the how, just focus on what it is that you want to create, and the how will come to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we let go, it's like you learn to relax, and whatever that is for you. And for us, it's through meditation.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest blessings that's come into my life, other than Veronica. And because Veronica brought meditation into my life. And by learning to do that, to quiet my mind. And we've also been blessed with just the work that we do to work through our emotions and understand and work through our intuition. It's really helped guide us and teach us through this whole entire process. And so when we learn to just quiet the mind, whether it's, going for a walk, getting out in nature, get away from the busyness of the world and just take a breath, slow down for a moment, and try not to push so hard and try to make things happen. And when we learn to just let it go and say, it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen.
Yeah. It's like, you have to see it as already done, as it's already here, whatever that is. And, but then when you try to force it to happen and maybe even rush it, that's like the wrong energy to bring into it. It's just letting go of that and just allowing it, like Aaron mentioned, allow it to happen. And there's more sense of peace and I don't know, like an inner calmness when you just allow it. It's like you're letting go of the resistance of the fighting against it and trying to force it, and you just like, you can sit and relax into it, and things will show up. And it's having that awareness of like, okay, so this just showed up. I wonder, is this something that can help towards this goal? And that's how it happens. Like, people will show up into your life, and then maybe they have the answer to what that you've been looking for. It's just interesting how that happens.
Yeah.
And in that moment, we might not know how, but eventually it does come.
And this can even show up as an example, because there's so many different forms of resistance, from business. And this is what they were talking about in the book, Working with the Law, is when you're trying to run a business, but you got your doors closed. Mm-hmm. Or it's like, how can we make this very easy for people to purchase our services or our products? And if we just remove all the resistance from how can we get them to get in contact with us? If people have to search for things, they don't want to take that kind of time, and then they'll go find something else.
Mm-hmm.
People want things to be easy. So how can we make things easy for people? That's one way of, or one example of a resistance and how to let things go. But also when we're dealing with other people, we were talking about this before, there are some comments here into the feed as well. If you find that there's any conflict with another person or a group of people, is if you're trying to force or create resistance of trying to get them to see things your way or make things happen to make you more happy or satisfied, it's the same concept. It is learn to just let go of having to push at it, because the more you push at it, you're going to get more resistance back, and it becomes this back and forth battle, and the two parties are going to get more frustrated with each other, rather than, we were talking about earlier, is just allow the other person to be, no matter where they're at in their life, even if it's someone you truly, really care about, and you see that they're going down, let's say, a wrong path or something, is, you can give advice, but then if they don't take that advice, be okay with that.
Yeah.
Meaning that, okay, at least you did your due diligence. Don't fight back with them. Just send them love and wish them well, and allow them to go through their own experience until they're ready to hear that. But what happens is, I think why maybe family, we're talking about family again, they might create resistance with listening to each other, is because there's resistance. There's a lot of pushback. And part of that could just be from upbringing of, ridicule, you should do this, you should do that, and what those feelings bring up. And it just becomes a habit of this person maybe always was a critical person, so I'm not going to listen to them.
Or it could bring up a trigger.
Yeah, it could be triggers
of some sort, and maybe not with that person, but maybe it reminds you of something else.
Absolutely.
So you just never know.
And so just allowing other people to be who they are, and you focus on you and what you want to do. It's helpful more to you, but you'll find that it's also helpful for the other person because they might be expecting you to
say something,
something.
Yeah, but it's allowing them to be on their journey wherever that may be, and just know that they're on their own journey, and we're all at different stages in our life on our own journey, and every person, it's like we don't have to do things all the same. Like, someone can realize what their life purpose is like at 10 years old, where another one, it takes them till they're 50 or 60 to realize what that is, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that it's like they've had all these experiences throughout their life, and if we can let go of trying to push someone to hurry up, and it's like trying to hurry them up on their journey. Like, no, we can't do that. It's like allow them to be where they're at and be okay with that.
Yeah. Here's a great question. And this comes from Maria. It says, if you don't implement actions, how are you going to achieve your goals?
If you don't implement actions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we're saying is it's not that you don't do any action at all.
Mm-hmm.
What we're talking about is being able to move forward and do things. So like action is a very important part of achieving our goals. We're not saying don't do anything and then just allow. You're not just sitting there. When we talk about allowing's not saying you're just going to sit in your chair, watch TV, and it's going to show up on your door like an Amazon Prime box. Is you let go of your resistance, such as the frustration or any worries or concern of how it's going to happen, how it's going to look, and time frames, etc. Is when we let go of our we call it like an emotional resistance of having to have things this way. When you find you're getting caught up emotionally with it, there's a form of resistance with that.
Yeah. When
you have full trust that your goal is going to manifest in some way, say, great, I feel comfortable. I'm just going to move forward. I'm going to do my work. I'm going to go to do the next step. What's the one thing that you can do today that'll move you one step toward your goal? And go ahead and do that with ease. But it's that sense of you don't take no action, because inaction doesn't create anything. And action is a very important.
You still have to take action, and taking action could be even doing research. Like if it's something that you don't know how to do research, study, maybe go to someone who's already doing it or something similar. But there's so much information online that you can find with so many different things. And which can spark ideas, for you to take other actions. So if you're not sure how something can be done, go and find, information, do the research, read some books, ask people who are doing something similar, and you'll get ideas, and then it'll spark you to take more action towards that goal.
And a lot of the resistance that we put up is really a mental process. It can come down to any limiting beliefs that we may carry from past experiences, from habits. And a lot of people may believe that, just like Maria was saying, it's like, well, I need to take action.
Yeah.
And a lot of people believe that, well, if I just take more action, then I'll achieve more of my goals. I'll achieve more of what I want. And for some, yes, that is absolutely true. If I do more, I will receive more. But at the same time, what you want to do is you want to do it with ease. You want to do it with peace within your own body and your mind, because there's people that will achieve those goals, but they're still unsatisfied. They're still unhappy. They create a lot of frustration trying to get there. That we were listening to an event that's going on right now from some friends of ours, and some really highly successful people by the things that they've been able to accomplish. And they've talked about the struggles that they had to go through. And it's been fascinating to see that a lot of them that are where they're at, the biggest thing they talk about is what's a key to their success and what they recommend for other people. Meditation was a big part of that.
Yeah.
It was fascinating to hear that's what a lot of them said. It wasn't about you got to do this, you got to go get your loans, you got to talk to these people, you got to 10x your results here or your activity. They said you got a sense of have patience. Because you're going to go through some struggles, but if you can get through that and realize something greater is going to come from that, you're going to grow in that process.
Yeah.
Our resistance comes from how we feel, how we think. And when we let go of that resistance and just, okay, I'm going to take this action step and not worry about the outcome. I'm going to move forward when whatever happens is okay. But it allows you to take that action step. Some people get stuck that they don't ever take that action because of the fear that's going on in their own mind.
Yeah. But it's the emotions that we put behind anything that we do. So if you're working towards a goal and you're frustrated, you're angry, and you're putting that energy into your goal, that's not the right energy you want to bring, towards what you're doing. It's like, if you're feeling that, that's the time where you need to take a step back, maybe meditate or do some inner work where you feel more calm emotionally. And then once you're calm, then take the action again. And just know that it's like the main thing of the goal is like the journey it takes to get there, because that's where all the changes happening. You're growing in the process, because if it's something that you've never done and you're having to change who you are to become that person, or to create something that you've never created before. But it's letting go of all the fears, the worries, the frustrations first, and moving towards that. But it's gonna show up, and that's a good thing, because you know that there's other things that need to be worked on.
Yeah, you're gonna go through it.
Yeah,
you might feel, oh, okay, I'm good. I've let all this go. I feel great. I'm gonna move forward, and then you're making progress, and then life's gonna throw another wrench at you.
Yeah,
and you're going to go through another series of things that you have to work through. And the word that Veronica mentioned a couple times just now was that concept of change. Are we willing to change things? Are we willing to do things just a little bit differently than we know how to do? And sometimes in that change is like, I only know how to do it one way. And being unwilling to do something in a different way, that's also a form of resistance, is not willing to be adaptable and changing, especially now. A lot of people have to change with the time. And for those that are not going with the flow and still resisting the changes that are happening, just think about the mental chaos that's going on in their own mind.
So let's go to some of the...
So Dan says,
I think I still have a little fear, especially around women, that I can't achieve my art or work in life with another person, because I can sometimes not have strong boundaries and can allow someone to ridicule or discount my way or destiny. I think as I walk in it alone and keep owning my power and live in that, I'm hoping I'll attract someone who doesn't want to abuse me like my mother or manipulate me to her way. Yeah, and that's I guess when you're looking for a partner, it's focus on the qualities that you do want in a partner. And everything that happened in the past with your mom and all that it was there to show you what you do want. But don't focus on that. It's like, focus on the good qualities that you want in someone. And it's like, oh, I don't want her to be this way, I don't want her to do that. That by doing that, you're giving that energy. So it's like, I want someone who respects me. I want someone who, whatever the qualities are that you want in a person.
Yeah. And because you're trying to avoid that type of situation, you put up that wall or that resistance to attracting that person. You say, I hope I can attract that person. But if that underlying fear is going on in the background, I don't want her to be like mom, I don't want her to ridicule me, I want to do this, then you can, that one person that you're looking for could be right there, right next to you. You will never see them, because that fear that's going on the inside is going to translate that to all. It's the association. That person can even give maybe some constructive criticism at some point, because relationships are all about growing together. And there's going to be some challenges, because there's the both of you that need to work through things. You need to work in a relationship.
And it's having that open communication, and like, if there's something that they said, maybe, and maybe you start to internalize it and take it in the wrong way, clarify it. Say, you said this, and you could say, I'm just curious, like, what did you mean by that? And because they might have a whole different interpretation. And, we have our perspectives of when we hear certain things based on triggers that come up. So that's why it's important to clarify when someone says something. Also understand that you can have both. You can have your art and everything that you do and a relationship at the same time. And it's not one or the other. You can have both. But it's knowing that you can, and just allow it to happen. Ooh, I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah. And part of that is asking yourself, what is it within me that I need to heal to attract that type of a relationship in my life. And if there's a lot of baggage that's still there from the past that hasn't been dealt with or healed, then that energy is still there. So there still might be a deep healing process that you may want to go through. And part of that it could be, letting go of certain emotions that are still there, whether it's anger, sadness, hurt, all of those, and then going through a forgiving process. No matter what has happened in my past, I'm willing to, and I'm able to forgive. I'm able to forgive myself for things that I've done, things that I've said. I'm willing to forgive other people for what they've done to me. If you still find you hold resentment or grudges towards other people, there's still more work to do. True forgiveness is when you can think about that person, you talk about that person or situation, and you feel absolutely no resentment, no anger, nothing, just peace, and allow that person to be in their life. And this process could just be an internal mental process. But when you find that you still get stirred up on the inside, when you think about a situation or a person, then you know that there's just still more work to be done. You've worked on one aspect, but not all of it. And you'll know because things will get triggered. Our last episode is about emotional triggers. You think you're doing great until maybe somebody says something, you find you get caught up in the emotion again.
Yeah.
And when we understand why does that bother us, why did that trigger me so much? Because it's still taking us back to that memory of being ridiculed or criticized when I was younger. And so it's like when you can go through and feel calm, even if someone's criticizing you, even if somebody says something towards you or other people.
And also understand when someone does criticize and like it's not just a comment or something, it's like full criticism. Understand that they have their own issues as to why they're projecting on you. So it's like a back and forth type of thing. So they have their own internal issues that they need to work on. And we have ours. So if someone is criticizing and it's affecting us, that's just telling us, oh, we have more work to do. And it's okay.
And that is another form of resistance, because what's the next thing that people want to do? They get criticized. Say something back. Yeah. Try to defend our position and say something. Can we just allow other people to criticize and say what they want to say, and we can still own our truth, be at peace, and not say anything back?
And that's just their opinion.
That's just their opinion. We move forward, but the moment we allow them to get to us, then that's our own internal process we have to go through. It's when we start to push back, that's going to create more fire, and that can create more issues as well. And so we learn to let go of these things, and we have to just stop and take a moment to breathe sometimes.
Yeah, we can't fight fire with fire. It has to be, opposite. So it's and by also showing the other person, like I'm not going to fight back and try to criticize you. And by showing them like you're just not going to do that, then it might spark something within them, like, oh, maybe I'm too critical, or so it's interesting how it can change someone else by not even fighting back in that sense.
Yeah. And I've been learning this lesson is how I feel around other people, maybe things that other people are doing, things that other people are saying. And if I'm finding that I'm getting bothered by it, why?
Yeah.
Why am I allowing myself to be affected? Somebody can say, oh, I feel this way because that person is doing this or that person's saying that, giving that other person power to dictate how you feel. Yeah. But we choose to feel the way we feel based on our own, our values, our belief systems. And we might say, oh, well, I will feel better once they change. I will feel better once they are doing everything that I want them to do. But then now that's a sense of control.
That's that control.
And you can't do that. The one thing you can control is you can control your own thoughts. You can control how you feel, and you can control your behavior and attitude. That's the one thing you should be working on all the time, is how am I going to be in this situation? How do I choose to be? And you can choose to fight back. You can choose to be calm, but you have that choice. But then we also look at cause and effect. What is going to be the effect of the action that I take? And we want to be able to think and reason and choose the right path that's for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's when there's a back and forth thing, like that never resolves anything. And if it's verbal things that are being said, if you fight back with other verbal stuff, like that doesn't solve anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the best thing is to, remain your emotional composure. Or if it does bring up the anger, that's okay too. And it's just understanding like, wow, like this is something that I still need to work on. And like, am I attracting these types of people?
Mm-hmm.
So that it's just an indicator to say, okay, there's still a little bit of something there that's attracting this situation or this person.
Yeah. I'll go. He says, it's almost like I have to stay in a state of contemplation and focus, if that is what it takes. Okay. Yeah, and I think a lot of times we need to be in that self-introspection state, understanding our own self. Like, again, if I start to feel bothered, if I start to feel sad for some reason, we can analyze, why do I feel this way? And most people don't ever take that time to really ask these
why,
questions about, why do I do the things that I do? Why do I feel this way? Why does this situation bother me so much? If you ask the questions, you'll get an answer. You may not get it right away, but you have to keep asking it, because there's always an answer with the question when we ask it. But a lot of times people just allow their emotions to take them, and they never stop to self-reflect on, wow, what's the message here for me? What am I supposed to learn? What's the good in this situation? Those are more empowering questions that we can ask ourselves, and that'll start to change our emotional state. It'll start to change the way that we think. And when we can analyze our own self on a day-to-day basis, and the more we do it, we get better at it. And we are able to correct and make the changes necessary for us to have a different experience in our life.
Yeah, because everything that we see on our outside world, our circumstances, the things we attract into our life, that's all a representation of what's going on the inside of us. Because it's the thoughts that we think, the things that we say, and a big thing is how we're feeling.
Yeah.
And that's the world that we see on the outside. So if you pay attention to your outside world and what you're looking at, that's a reflection of what's going on the inside. Because we can all be in a similar situation. For one person, it might be the worst thing ever. And for another person, it might be the best thing ever. And it's just how we see things, how we're feeling.
Yeah. And going back just real quick to the Working with the Law book, there's this line that says, the law, and this is talking about the law of non-resistance, reads that we attract what we expect. If we expect things to happen this way, whether that's good or bad, that's what we're going to attract. If we expect that people are going to criticize us for what we do, we're going to see more people that are going to criticize us for what we do. If we expect to have great relationships, if we expect to achieve our goals with ease, then that's what we expect. If we believe at a deeper level that things are difficult, things need to be hard or complicated, and I've been there, that doesn't work very well. Then again, we attract in those types of experiences. But once we change our focus, once we change how we feel, and that is the key indicator, you said it perfectly, was how we feel will let you know what kind of progress you're making. The more you feel good, the better. If you find you're getting frustrated or caught up in things more often, more work to do. Doesn't make it bad. It's there to show you. It's your guidance system that says, hey, there's still something for you to work on. We're trying to get you back to balance. We're trying to get you to be at ease and more happy and experience more joy in your life. But you're not experiencing that joy right now. Let's analyze why. Let's heal through that so you can experience more joy in your life. And when you're experiencing more joy, love, and peace, you let go of resistance.
Yeah.
You now start to allow better things to happen into your life.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the situation could be completely the same, but when you change it in your mind, the way you feel about it will change. Like it's all in the mind. It's how we perceive things.
And so what Veronica and I do, and Maria says, yes, you can be your own therapist. Absolutely. You could be your own therapist. You could be your own doctor because you know yourself better than anybody else. And sometimes we can get clouded by all these thoughts and emotions. Again, it's all just lack of understanding. We can't know every profession or field or thing out there. We could if we spent the time and focus and study. But the more we understand us, the more we understand, pay attention to our emotions. This is what Veronica and I teach people. We teach you how to work with your emotions, how to feel your body, how to let your emotions be your guidance system, how to tune into that greater power within you so you can be guided by your own intuition on what's right for you, which path do you need to go. And sometimes we need people to teach us that. And that's what Veronica and I help people do. We help people also to let go of these emotions that they hold on to, that they are unaware of, but it shows up in their experiences.
And one last comment before we go.
Oh, Dan says, and I like that I can say I need or I am working on this. I can state my needs, my art. This is what I need to do for my highest self. I'm sorry if you feel abandoned, whatever those are their responsibility teaching them. I love me more and my God because he will be with me for eternity. And that's a great place to come from. And then think about just that statement and how it feels to say that. And when we let go of the resistance and we get to that point that there's a higher power working with us, whether it is for you, it doesn't matter, that there's something out there that we can't see, but we can experience that's guiding us. There's something working for our good if I just put the intention out there. And when we come from that, it's like, wow, I don't have to do this by myself. I don't have to try to figure it out. It's all being figured out for me. Come from that mindset that it's already been planned and figured out for you. It's going to work out great. You just move forward. If you knew that everything was going to work out perfectly, if you can see the end result, would you still have all the fear? Would you still have all the frustration? If you knew it was going to happen exactly the way you wanted to, or something great was going to happen at the finish line. If you knew that you were going to win the gold medal before you even ran the race, and like you absolutely knew that, how much easier would your triathlons be? How much more joyful would those be? And that works for anything in our life. And this is a daily practice. And as I'm even talking about this, because I know it's just flowing through me, it's like I'm going to practice this more. Because we can always practice. We can always get better every single day.
It's always a good thing to better ourselves every day.
And I hope this show has been helpful for you guys in helping your lives improve a little bit more each and every day, every time we do this show. That's why we do this live every week, Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time. If you're enjoying this, let us know here in the comments. Let us know how it's helping you. And if you have any questions, you could put those here into the feed as well. And join us. Turn on that live notification button here if you're watching on Facebook to be reminded each time we go live. We're also live here on YouTube, so you can subscribe to our channel and turn on that bell notification so you always know when we post up a new video.
And we also have a new segment to our show tomorrow, actually, which is Numerology Thursdays. It's Divine Numerology with Darius Oliver, and he joins us on the show. And we talk about numerology and numbers and what does that mean for you, because we actually got a book on numerology, and it's just interesting how it breaks everything down, and it does make sense. Like we were reading it last night, and it describes, some of our personality and just how we attract certain things and people into our life.
Yeah, and things that we might need to work on, our challenges and weaknesses. If you guys would like to join us on that show, join us tomorrow on Thursday. It'll be at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And again, if you're here, just get the live notifications and you'll know when we go live. And join us because it's a lot of fun with that show. It's fun. It's a new segment we like to do. And last thing, Dan says, mahalo and thank you. Thank you. And thank you everybody else for joining with us here today. Again, you've been watching Awaken Your Spirit. We're your hosts. I'm Aaron Garcia.
And I'm Veronica Mendez Garcia. And thank you so much for joining us.
We'll see you next time. Bye.